Alright, this is going to be the second part and we're going to stitch together. This time I'm just going to really quickly touch on all the global hotkeys and how the default stuff works, and then kind of show you how to set your own in-game and explain what all of these hotkeys do, how they work in Stormgate, and kind of the best way to go about setting yourself up. Now, by default, the game used to just be grid with globals and the grid format, okay? Now, you can only ever set the grid, you can't customize it. So what I would do first right off the bat is change style, and you're going to go to by command, and we'll just hit accept and just back, and we're going to go back in, hit hotkeys, and we'll go from there. The reason to do like accept if you make any changes and just back out is you're going to make a lot of changes here sometimes, and when you have something you're really happy with how you managed to pull the hotkeys together, it's really worth just pulling back, looking at it, and saving your progress, right? So, alright, global. So drag scroll is what I talked about. That's middle mouse button scroll where you can move yourself around the map. There's zoom in and zoom out. What I'm actually going to do for me is I'm going to just disable both of those and take them out. If you click here, it just clears the key bindings, right? There's some big ones to clear everything. What we're looking to do is just clear these bindings, right? The reason I don't want to zoom in and out is there's really no reason to do it. For me, I just want to keep maximum whatever, and I'm not too worried about if I am zooming in and out of the game. If you want to take a closer look at stuff, because there's a bunch of new really awesome units in the game, leave it on. Nothing wrong with that. These focus jumps we're going to come back to really quick, but that is probably, I like that it's so high up here because it's probably the single most important thing to get good at for an RTS game, right? And the default settings are exactly what I use, so nothing wrong with that, right? The move camera up, down, left, right thing. Now, I believe it was Company of Heroes players. They will do WASD for like movement in that game. You have that functionality here if you want. Again, this is the arrow key movement stuff. Like the last player that I know that used it was like Slayer's Boxer, and that's going back a long time, guys. So don't worry too much about that. You've got all your basic control groups here. This is just very standard. This is exactly how StarCraft 2 lines you up. The one thing to catch, in my opinion, is this select control group 10 that's on 0 and spacebar. I would get rid of that, and we're just going to go back to 0. Having the spacebar on there, we can use spacebar for other things, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. If you're not familiar with control groups, there's a lot of tutorial stuff out there. I'm just trying to go through the hotkey stuff, but control groups are how you set, bindings, put your army on 1 or your army on 2. And there are a bunch of really cool default ways in Stormgate to be able to do that, right? The one thing I will mention is, and I'm going to come back to, is if you're used to playing a game like StarCraft 2, where for me, like I will bind command centers on 4, barracks 5, factories on 6, and starports on 7. There's a way to do that within Stormgate, but it's a little bit better than using these. And it's this is going to sound kind of weird, but like if you're looking to get the traditional StarCraft experience, you're going to kind of do one of these and just knock all these out, because we're not actually going to need those. We're going to assign them in a different way later on, and unfortunately with Stormgate a little bit, you have to watch out for the fact that it will double bind things, and that's not always what you want, right? So I'm going to take these out, but I'm going to re-add them later in just a second. I do still have the, not the set control groups, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of all the sets for those control groups. It doesn't really matter, because we don't necessarily want them, but we're going to use add for them. Again, getting rid of the spacebar on set control group 10, just going to rebind it back. The spacebar we're going to use for something else, or it's typically used for like your town hall in a game like Warcraft 3 or StarCraft, or like I use it for the last kind of notification. It doesn't really work in Stormgate like that, but that's fine. Now these add to control groups are really important. You can just go shift 1, shift 2, and it will add the units to your control group. I will leave shift 4, 5, 6, and 7 on, because what I like to do is, instead of pressing control or whatever to add those, I'm actually going to add that hotkey over here as an alternate, right? And the reason I'm doing that is a little bit weird, but because like, why wouldn't you just want to create the groups, right? Well, what I want to be able to do is have my command centers or my think they're control centers, but I want to have my town hall type buildings bound to 4, and I just want to add. I'm never trying to take those away. Same with like a barracks building, right? Same with your machine shops and your hangars and Stormgate or your starports or whatever, right? It's just a really good way to just have your buildings added, and you're not really going to use the hotkey anyway. So what it will do though is kind of have your hotkeys on the right. So you don't have to do this. This is just kind of how I do it to apply like a really basic StarCraft 2 style to Stormgate. Many options if you want to change that around, right? Again, when we get down to this one, we're going to get rid of it just because we don't want spacebar on there. You can if you want, like, it's whatever. The steel stuff, like the steel things, just leave them as there is, except again we're getting rid of this one. If you're not familiar with steel, steel control group is it's an awesome feature, right? So say you've got a drop ship you want to send off, right? You got a couple evacs, you want to fly them off with your atlases and go drop or whatever. I'm going to load up my evacs with, for me, I usually put them on hotkey 3, but if I grab them out of my group, I can just press Alt 3 and they leave every other hotkey they're in. It's one of the best things you can do. The best Terran player for StarCraft, and the vast majority of the good Stormgate players will use like a dump hotkey. So the example for me is like Clem. Clem will use a dump hotkey for units, and what he does is he just dumps them so he knows they're not in any other control group onto a different hotkey, and then he adds it to the one he wants, right? It's a really, really good technique to be able to use a dump with the stealing to just clean your hotkeys up, keep everything tidy. Don't worry about it too much, but definitely try it out if you're not used to it. I really, really recommend them. They're awesome. Now, select all army. In StarCraft 2, that's what? F1. So if you want to go F1, you can if you're used to it. And if you're going to do that, what we'll do instead of M, we'll just go F1. And it's going to give us a warning, right? So the thing with Stormgate is it doesn't cancel the other hotkeys, so we have to go and make sure we get rid of that so we don't have two binds, right? But we'll use F1 for all army hotkey, and the default I think is tilde for selecting idle workers. Adding idle worker to selection is the same thing. You got to kind of go through and make sure they're all correct. Select all idle workers, control. This is all the same as StarCraft 2, so add all idle workers, sorry. There we go. Alright, we finally got it. But just make sure you have everything just kind of tilted up. The select heroes thing is on tilde by default, but if you're used to, I don't know, games like League of Legends, or you can do something smart with this one. You go spacebar, right? Spacebar, double tap it. You can lock onto your hero just like you would in that game. Really good use of spacebar if you're not used to it, especially for the campaign. But in my case, I'm actually just going to clear the bind because I will use my hero and put him in a different hotkey, right? Nothing wrong with that. So now remember, we did select all army. We're going to go all the way back up to the top, and we can't use the focus jump location 1 anymore, right? So we just have to clear that and make sure there's not a double setup of hotkeys. We don't want to set it, nothing, right? Just completely get rid of it. Now control F2 will set that hotkey, right? But we don't want to ever have a double lap. It's totally okay, an overlap. Stormgate lets you overlap. It's not necessarily a good thing, so you have to work around it, and I'm kind of showing you how. But don't be afraid to have keybinds like without stuff on them, right? Stormgate has a ton of different options for stuff. Not all of them are useful, not all of them are great, but you don't need to have 700 million hotkeys to make sure everything's absolutely perfect, right? Play the game, enjoy it, have fun, go from there. So the steal and add to control group, right? It's an interesting one for Alt Shift. For me, it's not a hotkey I like. I prefer going with the dump method. If you want to leave it on, by all means, go ahead. But again, we're getting rid of the last one, which is the spacebar. We're going to go Alt Shift 0. Again, just get rid of all the spacebar stuff. It's not the key we really want to be using for things, in my opinion. And I believe they're thinking about getting rid of it by default, but either way, no big deal, right? This is an interesting one. Sorry. Alt plus tilde. Now, if you go Alt plus tilde, it's just removes from all control groups. That's your dump, that's a way to dump. It's basically just a pure dump hotkey. I think it's a really, really effective one. I don't know where I would bind it right now, personally. Maybe like backspace or something like that. Like, it's okay to have a hotkey that's just way out of the way. But, that's a really useful one. What that does is take it out of every single control group it's in, and then you add it, right? So, if you got a bunch of heli carriers or whatever, and they're in like 4 different groups, and you just want to get them out of everything and into their own group, bind this to something you can use a lot. It's a really cool one if you want to get used to it. Now finally, when we go into the selection, change control group, change focus group forward. Sorry, change focus group forward. Let me just grab a sip of my water here, or Red Bull. Alright, change focus group forward is like tab, right? So like if you've got a bunch of units selected, you want to tab through them, that's what that does. Shift tab has always existed. To change it backwards, it's the same in a lot of games, but almost nobody uses it. The important thing to note here is it becomes a little bit challenging with like quick macro stuff, to be able to do like a stack. So there are some players that like to have their command center, barracks, or no, command center separate, but they'll use their barracks, their factory, and their starport all on one hotkey in StarCraft. It's not as common now, but it's fairly common with players that didn't play like Brood War and older games like that, right? They kind of got used to it. It's really common for people to tie in their upgrade buildings with their command center, right? Lots of stuff like that. This is where it gets a little bit messy with the quick macro, and I'll come back to it. But, select next town hall. It's on backspace. That is just your main, command building. For me, it's spacebar, so I'm going to change it to spacebar. You can do whatever you want. And again, I'm going to include full-on, like, this is exactly how it feels in this game. Hotkeys that you can get started with and just make your life really easy, right? Open chat, all chat. Toggle chat channel. It sounds weird, but I'm going to get rid of that. I just don't want tab on something that I don't know what it's doing, right? Now, this is where it gets a little bit awkward when we go into general and we're talking about cancel, open menu, and pause. So you can leave pause on pause, everybody does that. Open menu means open the main menu. Almost every single RTS since the dawn of time has used F10 to do that, and they've used escape to cancel, right? So if you want it to be like StarCraft, you want to be like Warcraft, you want to be like basically every RTS game ever, that's what you want to do, and then you're going to have to go all the way back up again, and just make sure we get rid of our F10 stuff, right? So we have it on anything? Do we? Nope. Perfect. There is no F10. Bound to everything. It actually used to be in there a little bit, but they got rid of it, so that's awesome. We've got our, kind of traditional menu stuff. If you're used to losing a lot in StarCraft like I was, or you're used to losing a lot in any game, you want F10 end to be your quick way out. GG, F10 end. I don't know. It's whatever. If you want, whatever you want to do this is how it is in other games. I would say the cancel thing I'm going to get back to because it's a double bind with cancel. It also applies to individual stuff, right? So cancel is just, having escape is just like a global one. It's really, really nice that you could rebind this. You used to not be able to, and it made the game very challenging to play. So yeah, really, really important to get cancel to what you want it, because that's your, I'm doing this action, oh never mind, I don't want to do that escape. That's my, I don't want to build that stuff escape, right? There's a lot of reasons to use cancel, and it's very, very effective. Now, we're going to jump into quick macro in just a second, but first kind of want to cover the top bar stuff. If you're used to, whatever you're used to is what you want to do. So like, like for me, I do a lot of Control Z, like, it's going to get real mad for a second there, but you can just change this to what you need it to be. The top bar is kind of like spells if you ever play co-op mode. Some of them are really important to be active and quick with, but you want to make sure they're on stuff that you can use and rebind very, very easily. cycle player color option. I'm not a caster, don't need it, right? Toggle sound, you can leave toggle sound and music on, you never know. For me, this is going to be a little weird, but I'm actually going to clear all these ones out for now, just to keep the keys as clean as possible. Observer also applies to like replay and stuff, so there's like a reason to have this stuff, and it does make your life easier. But in my case right now, just to make sure everything works and there's no like kind of weird quirks, which sometimes there can be, we're just going to clear all that out, right? Now, because I've made all these changes, I'm going to accept, I'm going to hit back, I'm going to hit menu, and then we're going to go back into hotkeys, and we're going to spend 30 seconds, and we're just going to do this real quick, okay? So like, this is our 1v1 setup, and you're going to see that like all these options, super, there's tons of stuff, right? Well, the reason I brought up cancel, and this is all I'm going to show you here before I do more racial specific stuff, is because, hey, look, like, let's go to a barracks, right? So cancel is, essentially not listed here, but it will be. Actually, you know what? That's a change. That's one of the best changes I think I've ever seen. They got rid of cancel from there. That's awesome. There's not two cancel things. That's really good. There's a lot of good positive changes, and that's like honestly the biggest one. In terms of some of the hotkey frustrations, I'm really glad that got cleaned up, sorry. And yeah, I think for now we're good. We're going to show you how to jump in and get all this stuff. I'm going to cover binding this and the quick macro at the same time, and I'm going to do it in game. So we'll be back in just 1 second. This is probably going to be really important to you. It doesn't matter what race you play, and yeah, we'll go from there. Now, I haven't changed anything, so cancel, go back. Now, my game should really be playing like, whatever RTS game I want, but again, we're going to, set up some keybinds for you, and I'll be right back, but I'm going to jump into a game and show you it that way.